Many of you may have loved ones that suffer from debilitating memory disorders like Alzheimer's disease and dementia. It's in these experiences that we truly understand how important memory is to our daily life. That is why I'm studying what parts of the brain are important for learning and memory. So where is memory? There are different parts of the brain that are involved in learning and memory. Some of you may be familiar with a brain region called the hippocampus, which has a well-documented role in learning and memory. I'm interested in a brain region called the entorhinal cortex, which is heavily connected to the hippocampus. The entorhinal cortex is divided into two regions, the lateral and medial entorhinal cortex. And I want to know, what do these two subdivisions, what roles do they play in learning and memory? I'm looking at a specific type of learning and memory. Memory can be divided into many different types, with two subdivisions of non-declarative or unconscious and declarative or conscious memory. An example of non-declarative memory is priming, where subliminal advertisement is an example of this, and procedural memory, or learning how to ride a bike. Once you learn to ride a bike, you don't have to think about it every time you go to ride a bike. For declarative memory, an example is semantic memory or vocabulary, and episodic memory, which is the type of memory that I'm interested in. Episodic memory is memory of associations between experiences, location, time, and events. An example of this may be your memory of your own graduation. You can probably look back and think of who you were sitting next to. Maybe it was your own best friend, what you were wearing, maybe who the speaker was, and where you were. I like to think of episodic memory as the memories that make up the story of our life. But what parts of the brain are important for episodic memory? Like I mentioned, I'm interested in the entorhinal cortex, specifically the differences between the medial entorhinal cortex, or MEC, and lateral entorhinal cortex, or LEC. While MEC has been associated with location and space, making up the where pathway, the lateral entorhinal cortex has been associated with the what pathway, but has a less well-defined role. So is MEC important for episodic memory? Cells in MEC have been shown to respond to location. The activity above is recorded from a grid cell, and these grid cells have this very systematic pattern as you travel through space. So because of these cells in MEC, it's believed that this brain region is important for location. But is MEC also important for other parts of associations that are important for episodic memory? And I'm interested in LEC due to its connections with Alzheimer's disease. LEC is the first region where neurofibrillary plaques and tangles associated with Alzheimer's disease develop. So as the disease progresses, these plaques and tangles develop first in the LEC and then spread to other areas of the brain. So we're very interested in this region because of its connections to Alzheimer's disease and dementia. But how can we study episodic memory? Animals have been shown to have episodic-like memories, where they can learn to associate locations, objects, and time. So I can use an animal model to look at episodic-like memory and the mechanisms behind it. The task that I'm using is trace eye blink conditioning. In this task, I teach mice to learn to associate a whisker vibration with an air puff directed to the eye that causes them to blink. When you first present the whisker vibration, the animal does not have a response. Then you present an air puff, which causes the mouse to blink. After you repeatedly pair this whisker vibration with the air puff, the mouse learns to blink to the whisker vibration alone. So how can I use this task to look at the roles of the medial and lateral entorhinal cortex in episodic memory? Well, it can inject a virus into these two regions and see if the mouse is still able to learn. So if I inject this virus that turns off these areas of the brain and the mouse can no longer learn, then those areas are important. But if I inject the virus and turn off the part of the brain and the mouse still learns, then those areas of the brain are not necessary. My preliminary results suggest that while LEC is important for episodic memory, MEC is not. So when I turn off LEC, the mice can no longer learn, but when I turn off MEC, the mice still can learn. Overall, we're finding the groundwork for age-related changes and Alzheimer's disease. So right now, I'm looking at the importance of LEC and MEC to learning. But next, I'm going to look at how these neurons in these brain regions change with learning. And then we can compare that to the changes that occur in Alzheimer's disease and aging. So ultimately, we're laying the groundwork and looking at how the healthy brain functions so that we have a better understanding of what goes wrong in debilitating conditions like Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Thank you.